What time does the 7 o'clock meeting start?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everybody tuning in. Jesse and Amanda, the Show Others group in Edmonton, particularly Bob, Reed, Patrick in Minnesota or North Dakota or wherever you're hanging your hat tonight, and all the rest of you picking up with us. We open every session of Position in Neutrality with a prayer, and Wayne's here to do that for us tonight.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we could spend together. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your Holy Spirit. Guide us, lead us, Lord. We ask to encounter you tonight, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Wayne. And Wayne already let the cat out of the bag. Tonight is a step 2 night. So the entire point of step 2 is to encounter the power we call God in a tangible way. Right? So not what you may have heard in your fellowship meetings, not a doorknob, not a light bulb, not a group of drunks. This is power that expresses itself from inside of you. And it is sensory, and you will know it, and you will feel it. And we can improve consciousness of it, awareness of being aware. But if we don't have our encounter, then we'll never seek to improve that consciousness. So it's so important we have our encounter, because lack of power is what I admitted to just last week, right? So if I was powerless, then an introduction to power is critical to my whatever it is I'm going to get to do from here. Yeah? All right. So tonight we're in step 2, and we're going to talk about that encounter with power. You will find instructions for step 2 on page 42, isn't it? Something like that? 44? Yeah, you never know. 44. Page 44, chapter entitled We Agnostics. And it's appropriate for those of you that are fans of that other book and believers in things around this season. We're at the holiest day of this Christian calendar on Sunday. So a lot of people put a lot more importance in other holidays, but the reason for the faith is this Sunday, because he lives.
Amen.
Right? Amen. So we expect to have a powerful encounter. We expect to have healing. We expect to have all kinds of good stuff happening for people. Yeah?
Amen.
So the chapter is entitled We Agnostics. And the authors say, in the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. So the preceding chapters were Bill's story, and there is a solution, and more about alcoholism. And they spoke the doctor's opinion. They spoke about the twofold, threefold nature of our malady, right? A physical craving, a mental obsession, and then a need for a spiritual empowerment. Yeah? Okay. And then they left us there with an admission of powerlessness and talked to us about the sensory nature, hopefully, that they had experienced. And so tonight is for us to have our own experience, our own encounter with that power. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So it says, we hope that we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. So have they made that clear, or have you internalized that teaching from their experience and the doctor's opinion? The one difference, they say, we may have many similarities because we're all human, but the one distinct qualifier as an alcoholic is my abnormal reaction to the substance when I put it in my body. Right? Maybe the manifestation of an allergy, right? That phenomenon of craving, the doctor calls. That's the one thing. So we talked about what that meant in case people were confused last week. But if you are a drinker, when you drank, did you find that alcohol energized you?
Yes.
Okay, it's a sedative, so that shouldn't have happened. That's an abnormal reaction to a sedative, and that's the thing that we're talking about, and that doesn't happen in normal drinkers. Right. Does it make sense? Yes. All right. So if in fact that's you, then we should read further, right? So if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely. So how many of you have tried to quit entirely? Yep. Were you able to? No. Yeah, because that means stop and stay stopped, right? Right. Or if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take. Which did you discover first?
Control.
Did you have a loss of control before you decided to try and stop and then found you couldn't stop? That's common. But I know some people that are just the opposite. I think Sean, who often chimes in, he's just the opposite. It wasn't until he went to try and stop and stay stopped that he learned about the other. Because he had some control at some point in his, does that make sense? Yeah. But it doesn't matter, because what it says, if either one of those are true, you're probably alcoholic. Now, isn't it interesting that the authors are very careful not to declare that for anyone? Yeah. Why?
Because we have to declare it for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you can or you cannot, but you're going to more than declare it. I got to know it, don't I? Yeah. What the author said is, when we became alcoholic, crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade, we had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or he's nothing. What's your choice to be? And so basically, I'm not an alcoholic in a meaningful way until I'm recovered. Yes. Otherwise, it's just an excuse for the way I drink. Right. Right? All right. So if that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. So in their experience, you may not be able to outgrow your alcoholism without a spiritual experience. And that leads me to believe they saw some who quit drinking, but maybe they didn't live quite as happily. Have you ever met them? Yeah. So you might be able to just not pick up no matter what, but that need for a sense of ease and comfort is going to still drive your outward actions. Does it make sense? How many of you have had that experience? Yeah. See, because the spiritual experience isn't available to me until I honestly want it and I'm willing to make the effort. So you might be able to do it without it. I found that I could not. Right? Okay. So to one who feels he's an atheist or agnostic, such an experience seems impossible. Do I have anybody who feels there might have been or might be atheist or agnostic? Atheist is really a definite. There is no. And the agnostic is a little bit less so. I doubt that the power can be proved, right? Like, I don't want to piss you off, but right? So, and most of us are all agnostic to some degree. That's why they write a chapter to the agnostic to help us find ourselves, because we doubt the power of God in some area of our life, right? Oh yeah, when I say God, power. They say power. And those of you following us that have never heard why I do that, hi, Justine, good to see you. The reason I do that is I know some people are atheist or agnostic when they come here, and though they're inspired by what we're teaching, but that can block them. Their prejudice can block them. So what we want to talk to people about, focus on the experience of power from within. Yeah. And don't worry about any theological connotation you may place on it, right? All right. So, to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he's an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. How many of you have concluded that might be you? Yes. And if you're listening to me, if you've concluded that might be you, that just means read further. Consider whether you want to enter in. Yeah? Yeah. So to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. Now, it seems interesting to read past, but think about what they're saying. Happy, joyous, and free, alcoholic death. Pick one. Can I get back to you?
Yeah.
Really, if we're honest, what's going on within me? Do I not believe I'm worthy? Do I not believe it's possible? Do I not have any idea what it looks like?
Yes. All the above. Exactly.
So they're trying to call our attention. Nobody makes this decision lightly. Everyone questions it, and that's appropriate. But we're going to try and make it make sense to you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. But it isn't so difficult. About half our original fellowship were of exactly that type. So who's that? So they said this is the book, the story of the first 100. About half, 50 by most math I can come up with, were either atheists or agnostics. They either did not believe God could be proven to exist, or they did not believe God existed at all. Yep. Okay. So at first, some of us tried to avoid the issue, hoping against hope we were not true alcoholics. So how many of you did that? I just need to tame it down for a while, fade some heat. It'll get better, and then, right? How many of you tried that plan and it didn't work out? How many of you got to the point where you desperately wanted to stop and couldn't stop starting again? Yeah, it's a scary place to find yourself just buried in it and really know how bad you want to stop and not be able to manifest any outward action to show it. So no one's believing you, right? All right. So, but after a while, we had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life or else. Guys are going to talk to us about a manner of living in the next chapter. They're telling us the little basis, the foundation of my basis of life in a spiritual walk is the power that animates me in that walk.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right. So perhaps it's going to be that way with you, but cheer up. Something like half of us thought we were atheists or agnostics. Our experience shows that you need not be disconcerted. So important, you see the authors, half of them atheist or agnostic, the other half believers dying in addiction, but to a person, they thought they were doomed for whatever reason, but had an experience that taught them otherwise. Not one of the first 100 remains a non-believer, regardless of what anyone tries to tell you. They just told you that.
Yes.
Their experience changed their mind. There's another book that says, do not be conformed to this world, rather be transformed through the renewal of your mind. Does that sound familiar? Well, that's what they're talking about. Okay, so if a mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. But we have found that such codes and philosophies did not save us, no matter how much we tried. So how many of you tried?
Just two.
I used to hear it a lot in fellowships, change your people, places, and playgrounds, or something like that. And everywhere I went, there was someone slinging shit. You know what I mean? No matter where I went to play, somebody had something. So really, I need to be immunized against that stuff some way, don't I? So we could wish to be moral, we could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. So how many of you now can relate to what they're talking about?
Yeah.
I just lacked the power to carry out my conviction. So it says, our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. Sounds like they're describing a progression. How many of you found that you could hold your own commitment to yourself shorter and shorter and shorter?
Yes.
Like you might be able to pull it off for a little while at first, and then pretty soon it's like,
Gone.
yeah. So it says lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. They put that in italics for a reason. Why does it have to be a power greater than me? Because I'm the same guy who keeps going back. So if it's left up to me, I'm going back. Experience dictates. Yes? So obviously, but where and how are we to find this power? Well, that would be the question, wouldn't it? Well, I'd never like to leave people hanging. So I know the authors go right on through with the story, but let's go to 55 and answer the question where and how, and then come back.
Yes.
That way, you guys that are meth addicts won't start taking apart my furniture. We don't ever want to leave the meth addicts sitting long. It's all bad. So page 55, actually we were fooling ourselves. So who's the we? The first 100s, regardless of what they believed, they were fooling themselves about what they believed about this power. Right? For deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God.
Power.
So important, guys. We've gotten to a place where our fellowships is lazy, and we say, just get you a God of your understanding. They never said that. They said God as we understood him, and that's after they've had this radical delivery. After they've had this experience, then they had an understanding of an experiential relationship with a power within them. So when they talk to you about the fundamental idea of God is found within you, they're not talking about your idea. They're talking about God's idea for you. And if you can read English, it's pretty clear that's what they said. The fundamental idea of God is found within you. And what we probably know about that idea is it involves power and purpose for your life. Does that make sense? All right. So then it tells us it may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other it's there. So what is calamity?
Tragedies.
All kinds of things that have happened to us or in response to us that have caused us to be distrustful. Yes? And what is pomp?
Material things.
Any of you had a lot of good things happening in your life and thought you did it? And just sort of forgot that there might have been some other forces in play? When good things happen, I did it. When bad things happen, y'all did it. That's pomp, right? And then worship of other things. Any of you worshipers of power, prestige, respect? Where's my people that suffer from a violence addiction? They're in the room. I don't know. They're in every room. Not everyone's brave enough to raise their hand, Rick. But it's true. You too. Huh. Yeah. So the reality is that adrenaline rush feeds you, and it feeds the idea of who you are, and it backs people off so they don't discover who you really think you are. Not who you really are, because you don't even know who you really are. But hopefully we're going to get you there.
Yes.
Right? All right. So then it says, it's there for faith in a power greater than ourselves, and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. Now, people get the idea that we don't see miracles. I work in the behavioral health field. I watch the vast majority of people who come with a serious diagnosis of chemical disorder. The vast majority of them do not make it out alive. That's fact. And when I see one not only living but thriving, that is an example of power in and on that life. So you may not know what miracles look like, but if you're resonating with what I'm saying, you are what miracles look like. Wake up. Right? There's another book that says, wake up, oh sleeper. Yeah. Anyway, so we finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. So how many of you have had a friend? Pretty much everyone's had a friend. How'd that friend make you feel?
Good.
Might make you feel good, might make you feel scared, might make you feel enraged, depending on, right? We're not saying that this power is a feeling. What we're saying is your awareness of the feeling is the power. the fact that you can bring to consciousness that is divine. Does that make sense? Which is why you want to improve that so that you can start developing self-control and some of these other spiritual gifts. Does that make sense? Because sometimes our lack of self-control is why we've been in some of the calamities we've been in. Yes? All right. So then it says, sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there, capital H. So now they're talking about real, yes, by nature of just the way they did that. So now they've told me where and how. So where and how? Deep down inside, and sometimes I'm going to have to search fearlessly. So that's told me why I want this step, this encounter, because the next step I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to say a prayer inviting this power to look within me and help me walk out of this situation I'm in. Yes? Because that prayer is asking me for power to do that searching and fearless moral inventory so I can find out what calamities, pomps, and worships are obscuring my consciousness of who I really am and whose I really am, as opposed to what the world has taught me I am. Does that make sense? All right. So then it says he was as much a fact as we were. Well, that's pretty radical transformation for an atheist. That's pretty radical, transformation for anybody. But for someone said there is no God, to go from that to he is as much a fact as I am. You can prove to me you don't exist before you can prove to me God doesn't exist, because he animates me. Profound, isn't it? So we found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it's only there that he may be found. It was so with us. So for those of you who are struggling on this day or any other day, the reason for the manner of living is that never changes. In the last analysis, it's only there that he may be found. If I'm suffering from something in the world, I've assigned it a meaning greater than the one within me. It's a lie. And so I need to reel that back in. Check out my relationship, straighten out my relationship with Creator. Creation straightens out, regardless of what's going on in your life. Does that make sense? Yes. All right. So I got to go back. I promised I would go back. So we know where and how, right? Okay. And so the next sentence in 45 says, well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. Now, I don't know what your problem is, no matter how many of you are listening to me, but I'd be venturing to say that most all of us have one. And they didn't get specific because this power solves them all. Does that make sense? So what the next sentence says is that means we've written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. And it means, of course, that we're going to talk about God. So remember, when we talk to you about God, we're talking about power found within. You may not believe that right now because maybe your consciousness of the power is still obscured by calamity, pomp, and worship. That's what the inventory is about and the manner of living is about. Remember, this book is written by people post-experience. They've had the experience they're telling you about. That's why you don't want to listen to Charlie in the back of the room telling you his experience, because I've had Charlie's experience. Joe's Anonymous sucked. AA works. Does it make sense? I know you know. I'm trying to use names that are common, but there's always the guy. Well, that ain't what I did. My sponsor said put an egg in your pocket. Oh, okay. I'm going to rob you and fucking burn your house down, but sure, let's put an egg in my pocket. Here, difficulty arises with agnostics. Many times we talk to a new man and watch his hope rise as we discuss his alcoholic problems and explain our fellowship. They were careful to differentiate their program from our fellowship. We're less careful today. The manner of living is the program described in the book, and the fellowship is where we go to share our experiences and pray and lift each other up. So, but his face falls when we speak of spiritual matters, especially when we mention God. For we've reopened a subject which our man thought he had neatly evaded or entirely ignored. That's why many people will get years in recovery and find themselves miserable and think they'd rather kill themselves or get loaded because they haven't encountered power. And they're constantly getting in scrapes, chasing ease and comfort in the world instead of going the only place it can be found, within. So we know how he feels. We have shared his honest doubt and prejudice. Your only obligation to you, if you're new to the spiritual manner of living, is to share your honest doubt and prejudice. Because if you'll do that with any of us who are known by this power, we are under obligation to introduce you to said power.
Yes, sir.
And we will. Whatever it is we're doing, we'll stop doing whatever that is, because there is no more important assignment than introducing you to the one who has apparently called you.
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
Some of us have been violently anti-religious. To others, the word God brought up a particular idea of him which someone had tried to impress them during childhood. Perhaps we rejected this particular conception because it seemed inadequate. With that rejection, we imagined we had abandoned the God idea entirely. We were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly. Have you ever been bothered with that thought? We spend a lot of time teaching each other. You just pick yourself up and go. Well, and we neglect to really be honest about our own experience. This isn't a power beyond me. It's a power within me. But though in me, it is not of me. So it requires that I develop a relationship with it.
Yes.
Does that make sense? That doesn't mean that I lose consciousness of me. I still think like me. I'm just empowered to act better than the way I think much of the time.
Right.
You following me? This is real. This is tangible. I'm not going to be a servant until that happens. Not a good one.
Right.
Okay, so we looked upon this world of warring individuals, warring theological systems, and inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. We looked askance at many individuals who claim to be godly. How could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? Question mark. When they ask a question in this book, specifically the way you read this book, it's because they call it a text, you study it. You ask yourself what that means to you. Have you ever had that thought? And you're trying to learn to be more introspective. Eyesight without insight is spiritual blindness. Don't run around blind. Does it make sense? So if you've had thoughts like that, and who could comprehend a supreme being anyhow? Question mark. So who could comprehend a supreme being? Well, obviously a supreme being would have some knowledge. But couldn't a child of a supreme being? Why is it that they're so busy telling me that I'm a child of the Most High, and I'm readily always trying to comprehend that which I know I can't comprehend? Any of you ever raised a child? Don't they all try and comprehend what they can't comprehend? Why you got such a problem with being a child of the Most High then? Sure, acting like one. Anyway, yet in other moments, we found ourselves thinking when enchanted by a starlit night, who then made all this? You got to get this, guys, because if we don't get this, we miss the whole teaching. Have you ever been out in nature and saw something so inspiring that it was almost like an out-of-body experience?
Yes.
Like, wow, there's got to be something in it's a whole lot greater than me that's doing this.
Yes.
They said there was a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost. How many of you have been in a dangerous spot?
Yes.
Most people, at some point, a car wreck, an accident, a gunfight, a fist fight. If you've ever been in that, did you notice at the time of intense danger, time seemed to slow down?
Yeah.
When that happened, you experienced your consciousness. It's one of the names we're talking about here. How many of you have done something athletic?
Yeah.
even if you just were doing wannabe athleticism. Right? I'm not looking for pro signers or anything, but if you ever made the perfect catch, the perfect throw, the perfect dive, the perfect shot, you didn't have any doubt on your mind, like you could see whatever you were doing happening. When that happened to you, you experienced your intuitive self. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So all of us have had an experience. Yes? You can get it to mind now. So then it says, yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. See why it was so important? Because you got to acknowledge it. It's not going to work for you, right? They said the first step in recovery is we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost self. Can't do that based on a lie. That's always what's up in every step going forward. So don't let me convince you. Look at your experience and is it true? And if it is, then give the power your yes.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Yet, let us make haste to reassure you, we found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice, so paint the picture, lay aside. Y'all know what prejudice is, right? Do you know what it is in you?
Yeah.
One of the things the inventory will help you do is lay aside prejudice, by the way.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to learn to do that, right? Do you know when you're thinking in a prejudicial way? Okay, so paint the picture of you laying aside prejudice before you do any deep dives. Yes? Okay. And then it says, and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than yourselves. You're willing to do that? And it says, we commenced to get results even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God.
Power.
He wouldn't be infinite in nature if I could fully define or comprehend him. Do not put your creator in a box. That's the lesson. Yes? He's bigger than you think, more than you can ask or think or imagine, is what he says. Yeah? All right. So we're focusing you now on the power that we've called your attention to, and some of you are feeling it as we're laying this out. That's the power that we're going to seek to improve consciousness of as we move forward. Consciousness being the awareness of being aware.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
All right. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Why not?
God's not a conception.
Not a conception. And everyone's is incomplete. And what my goal is to form a unique relationship based on the purpose he has for me. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need a bunch of clones. Society would like for us to be clones. Your creator would like for you to be a garden. You ever gone in a garden that everything was the same? Boring freaking garden. Okay. All right. So our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and effect the contact with him. So wherever you are, he meets you where you are. Just open your mind to the possibility of an experience that can change your mind. Does that make sense? And how you open your mind is you act in the actions suggested that will help you open your mind. Like first, get armed with the facts. We're going to do an inventory. We're going to say a prayer. Then we're going to do an inventory. Then we're going to say another prayer. Right? Okay. All right. So as soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. So a new sense of power and direction from where? From within. Provided what? What was the condition?
We take certain steps.
A lot of people say that didn't happen for me, so I don't believe in any of it. But they've already told you. You're going to have to move through the process. You may not have your second step until you're taking somebody else through their first step.
Right.
Because the process of unpacking isn't complete for you. In our fellowships, we say, keep coming back. Don't leave before the miracle happens. I would suggest to you, that's true if you're doing the manner of living too. Don't stop because your first 7 prospects fail, because they didn't fail. It's just not their time. You're learning, they're learning.
Right.
But if you'll keep working with people, you're going to have some profound experiences. And just because they don't stay well after you have a profound experience with them, that doesn't mean you failed.
Yeah.
Because this power you're going to encounter can do anything but fail. It's just timing. That wasn't your turn to see a complete redemption. It was your turn to grow in consciousness. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So we found that God does not make too hard turns with those who seek him. To us, the realm of the Spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It's open, we believe, to all men. So the family of men. It's open to everybody, regardless of race, creed, religion, whatever, including belief. I'm going to separate belief from religion because atheists and agnostics from our foundations have not been excluded. They still have to take certain simple steps to get this profound experience, however. Right? All right. So when, therefore, we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. So wherever you are, if you have a conception that's not suiting you, that's when you share your honest doubt and prejudice.
Yes.
Because I'm only going to talk to you of the redemption from a condition that I described to you that looks like something that might be helpful for you. Right? Because I am that guy. I died in addiction. I just didn't have enough sense to lay down.
Yeah.
I was an empty shell of a man, in and out of hospitals and jails. That's it. That's all I could muster. And even in the hospital, after a week in a coma, I got my ass up as soon as they let me up, and I went out and got a beer across the parking lot, because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And this power got a hold of me, and that's never happened again. And people like that guy I described to you did die and should have died, and now I'm here to tell you the one in me saw that happened.
Yes.
And unfortunately for me, there's remnants of the way that guy thought that still crop up in me, and this power deals with them as I live out the rest of my life.
Yeah.
All right. So this applies too to other spiritual expressions which you find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. So get a dictionary. If you don't like the way a word works, look it up. Don't assume you know the meaning of every word, right? Sometimes we look at a word and we think we know what it means. It may mean something different, or it may have several meanings. Yes?
Yes.
Don't believe the guy that said they only used one dictionary. This thing went all over the country. People have used dictionaries and thesauruses, and they, it's individual to you, the experience, right? This is not a book on how other people ought to behave. This is a book on how if I will try and behave, it won't matter to me how the rest of y'all behave.
Right.
It frees me from me, so I'm free to be me. The process and then the power. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to affect our first conscious relation with God as we understood him. Those of you who are telling me, no, it's a God of my understanding. My sponsor told me. No, conscious relation is how they understood this power we call God, which means an awareness of being aware of a power in and on my life, not a concept. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach.
That's so true.
How many of you had all these plans for your life and none of them happened, and all of a sudden you started really living a life? But if we wish to grow, we had to begin somewhere, so we used our own conception, however limited it was. We can work with whatever your conception is. Yep. Okay, so we needed to ask ourselves but one short question. So here you are. Here's your second step prayer. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself?
Yes.
And I will say this to those of you who are defiant no's, you're wasting valuable high time. I'm not telling you anything about theology here. I'm telling you, if you haven't at least admitted that heroin or cocaine or methamphetamine or alcohol or whatever drug you into our fellowships is not a power greater than you, then go forth.
Shoot heroin like a gentleman.
Shoot heroin like a gentleman. Absolutely. So no one's talking to you about a deity or anything else at this point. All they're saying is, I got to at least admit I'm whipped before I can invite the healer.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So Those of you who misquote me and say you have to believe in God, no, that's not what I said. I said you got to believe there's a power greater than you that drove you to me. I don't care if you call it heroin or fentanyl or rage or whatever you call it. If you came to me, people don't get, there's 7 billion of us on this rock. It just doesn't happen. Because I'm only here to bear witness to this power. All right. So as soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he's on his way. Why could they be so emphatic?
That was their experience.
They knew it, right? It's delight that we experience in getting to share that news with someone we know is receiving it, isn't it? So who's feeling that right now? Yeah, that delight is what we're improving consciousness of. When you start feeling the Spirit resonating in you, it's resonating in the one you're speaking to, because the one who's doing the resonating is there whenever 2 or more of you are gathered in his midst. Anyway, it has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. So those of you students, the other book, you know who the cornerstone is. It's the, it's a really heavy burden on those who don't believe, and it's the foundation for those who do. Yeah, it crushes the heads of the ones who don't. That was great news for us. For we'd assumed we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seem difficult to believe. Guys, you don't got to eat the whole cake before we get it batched and in the oven. But it would help if you'd let us sort of mix things up for you a little bit and walk you into it, right? Don't assume I'm lying, because anyone that knew me years ago knows I'm not lying about what a miracle my recovery is. I shouldn't be here. So when people presented us with spiritual approaches, how frequently did we all say, I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if only if I could only believe as he believes. But I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him. Most of us have had a similar experience like that. And what I'm here to tell you is, if you are inspired by what you hear me saying, even if you can't comprehend it, you already have what it is. We just got to wake you up to it. Does that make sense? People always tell me I talk fast. I don't talk fast. I fill you with a lot of information, and you're back 3 thoughts trying to experience it. And so you think I'm running down the road, but I'm just an old guy kind of meandering along. But your comprehension may not come until you walk it out. So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level, wherever you are. If you're willing to question the way you've been thinking and acting, and take some suggestions on a new way to think and act, with the addition of a power that we're going to prove to you as you walk it out, are you willing to do that? Yeah, that's exactly right. Besides the seeming inability to accept much on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. How many of you have had that happen? Unreasoning prejudice is like, I'm not even going to hear it. I've looked at you and I know the kind of people that look like you, so I'm not going to listen. We do that a lot. We miss a lot of lessons by not even getting to know some of the people that came to give us the lesson, right? Yeah. And they also talk about obstinacy. I'm just not gonna, because I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna be told that what I've believed all my life is not. If what you believed all your life is working for you, then the hell are you doing here? And then sensitiveness. I used to hear that a lot in fellowship. I'm sensitive because I'm alcoholic. You ever hear that? You're not sensitive because you're alcoholic, but because you're alcoholic, if you are, your sensitivity's killing you. Right? Because the world's just overwhelming you. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you want to improve consciousness of who you really are so that your sensitivity was diminished or removed? It's kind of logical, really, if you think about it. Anyway, many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. So I got a prejudice so deep that all you got to do is sound a certain way, and I'm going to shut you off. In fact, I'm probably going to try and scare you away from me. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. So if you find yourself here and you're still thinking like that, then we need to work on how does one abandon a way of thinking. And you know how you do it? You confront your thoughts. You learn to confront your thoughts instead of your brother. Okay, so though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Look how they connected thoughts to feelings. They were ahead of themselves from a psychological standpoint, I think, at this point, for laymen. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. That sounds silly, but when you're really in a jam, you're willing to consider more than when you're not in a jam. Yep. Okay. So in this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. So later in the higher consciousness, we're going to talk about our new attitude toward alcohol. If you're growing in the spirit, eventually you're going to realize that when you're watching somebody really ripping and running, alcohol's busy persuading them. And we're going to pray for them because I want them protected through that. But I'm not going to try and argue against alcohol. It's doing its job.
Right.
I'm not here to tell you about the evils of alcohol and drugs. I can see them and you can see them too. You seemingly are not dissuaded by that. Good for you. I tried. Okay. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. So you got to ask yourself, am I reasonable? Have I tried all I'm willing to try at this point of my own volition? And am I willing to consider what you fellows are saying that's worked for millions over all these years? That's really what it comes down to. Am I willing to listen to somebody other than the guy at the bar? And when most of us took it out far enough, we ain't sitting in bars because they won't let us. So let's just get real. Behind the dumpster. Rarely, I mentioned word and veil. Anyway, sometimes this was a tedious process. Any of you recognize yourself in that? A little tedium. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were. Some of us take it out further than others. You don't have to. If you can get honest with yourself. And if you can't get honest with yourself, you're going to take it out as far as the grace of this power allows you. And if you don't do that, then you'll be an example for others about what happens when we don't. Right? So the reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let's have a look at some of them. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided they're firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Question mark. Yeah, to Eric's point, we've had an experiential relationship with electrical theory. I don't have to understand electrical theory to experience the benefits, the effects, or the possible harmful effects, because I've experienced both. Right? I have grabbed a live wire, and that's not advisable. Yes? And I've also learned to turn on the air conditioner and set the thermostat, and then I don't sit around praying for a change in temperature. I simply, in faith, know the temperature change is coming. Yes? So not only do I believe in something that can't be seen or that I can't fully define or comprehend, but I've come to rely on it. So it's not impossible for me to have faith. I show it all the time. Does that make sense? All right, simply because it's impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reasonable assumption is a starting point. Yes? So the reason I don't think I know everything about electrical theory that I need to know is because I just walk over and turn on a switch or whatever, right? That's my starting point. But if I know that that power is all around me all the time, I don't necessarily see it, it's accessed and channeled for me to use because someone figured out how to channel it. What if a creator found a way to channel the power in you and get you to animate? Anyway, said he was building a house. You know what I mean? Any of you wire houses? Maybe you're just a wire, baby. All right, so everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there's good evidence, but no perfect visual proof. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? Why? Because we think we see one thing and we learn we're seeing another, right? Yeah. So it's being constantly revealed as mankind studies the material world that outward appearances are not inward reality at all. So they're saying you're looking at something from the outside, but inwardly, the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. So we know it's a light body at some subatomic level. That's what we know. That's not what we see. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. Is that true?
Yes.
We accept that there's these subatomic particles whirling around. Do you realize that you're also part of that?
Yes.
Do you realize that some of those precise laws are about action-reaction? How many of you have been empowered to act kinder than you feel? There's another book that talks about how you'll be raised above the laws of this world. Has that not happened for you?
Yes.
Who's feeling me? Someone's feeling me. So your scientific spirit's telling you this, right? This is logical, and this has happened for me.
Yeah.
Okay, we have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all-powerful guiding creative intelligence, right there our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. Have you ever had that kind of argument within yourself? That's all they're talking about. Sure. We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. The universe needs no power to explain it. None of us would make that argument, right? None of us would attempt to make that argument. That's why we substitute the word interchangeably for people who are logical, and they're trying to come up with this from a perspective of logic. You can't, because none of us can fully define or comprehend. So were our contentions true, it would follow that life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists chose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end of all. And then they conclude, rather vain of us, wasn't it? Let's deconstruct that, because you can't just say, yeah, and read past it, because it's not going to fully concede your innermost self, right? So why would I choose to believe that the universe was created out of nothing, going nowhere, meaning nothing, as opposed to believing that I am the driving force of God's love on earth? That's what a spearhead is, the driving force. There's another book that says we're his hands and feet. If you love me, feed my sheep, he said.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
So why would I choose nothing means nothing, going nowhere over that life of purpose, expressing God's love on earth? Most people looking at that logically would choose the other, even if they didn't believe, wouldn't they? Yeah? Okay. So they said that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end of all. So let's start. Alpha and Omega. Alpha is beginning. So depending on when you believe the beginning is, doesn't really matter to me. If you're human, you probably came into awareness in this world as a result of somebody else's decision.
Correct.
We call them parents. Yes? Right. Even if we're not saying that was at conception and it wasn't until birth or whatever, it doesn't matter. You didn't come into awareness at that point.
No.
So by the time you came into awareness, the likelihood is others, at least others that we rationally can identify, conspired to make that appearance for you. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know anything about the beginning because I wasn't in on the original decision.
No.
So alpha's out. Now, how many of you did things that you saw other people die doing? How many of you wondered why them and not me? How many of you tried to bring the end to you? Okay, so that would be the omega. So not only did we not succeed at that, but we clearly didn't know what it was or why or anything. We had a lot of questions around, yes?
Yes.
So now do you understand what they say? Rather vain of us, wasn't it?
Yes.
I know nothing about it, the beginning or the end, or a whole bunch in the middle. Yeah? Okay. So, we who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religions. We've learned that whatever the human frailties of the various faiths may be, these faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is all about. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatever. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness, which we should have sought ourselves. And I always point out to people that have struggled with recovery, did you ever meet those guys that every time you'd go out, you'd come back, they were still there, they were still... Okay, well, they were probably doing something spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to have to wind down pretty quick. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. We talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. So the only thing I want to leave you with in parting is humans are grossly imperfect in our nature. The world we live in displays all kinds of unkind and imperfect mindsets and outcomes. But the reality is, I'm in no position to judge given what I did to try and squander the life I was given. So I'm better using my energies to examine the way I'm thinking and seeing what I can do to improve something. And if I can't improve it, at least I can't do more harm. And all of that requires a power greater than me. Does that make sense? Because we're not going to get in a theological argument tonight. We're going to conclude right here. We'll see you guys next week.